The views and opinions expressed in this podcast by the hosts and guests may or may not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of Miami University.
I am going into my last semester of chemical engineering.
I'm a senior journalism major.
And I'm minoring in supply chain and operations management.
I'm a biochemistry major.
Classes are going great. Extracurriculars are going great.
I'm an RA on campus.
I'm thriving.
Hi, I'm Jason Megacy, and this is Major Insight. This is the podcast where we talk college life with amazing students about how to find your place and purpose on campus. So this is a very special episode of Major Insight. This episode is actually my last episode as host. It's kind of bittersweet because we've made all this progress and gotten the podcast on to a new level. The person that I'm talking with today is going to take it even further. But before we get into it, before I start asking her questions, I'm going to let her introduce herself, and I'm going to start off with the question that I ask everybody. Who are you?
My name is Meredith Aliff. I'm a speech pathology major and psychology double major. I am from West Virginia, and I came to school not knowing a single soul, and I've loved every second of it, and I love Miami, so I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, no, and we've talked multiple times before this, and your story's so cool how, you know, you've, in 2 years, you've kind of navigated this college space, and even, I would even say, experienced, I don't think 4 years of college, but, you know, a major part of college, you know, switching your major, doing stuff like that, which we'll get into. But kind of just talk to me about, you know, your history with podcasting and what kind of drew you to wanting to be a part of this.
Yeah, sure. So I came into college and there was something about me that just didn't want to come in undecided. And so my senior year of high school, I was the editor-in-chief of my school yearbook. And I thought, hey, like, this is pretty fun. Maybe I'll try journalism. And so I went in with journalism and very quickly added on the psychology double major and started taking journalism and psych classes right off the bat. I loved it. And my first semester, sophomore year this year, I was in a podcast class, and we learned about the ins and outs of it, the technical part. We made our own podcast, so we got to see kind of like all the different parts of podcasting and what you can do with it. And I totally went crazy for it. I was so excited. I immediately started looking all over campus for ways to keep doing it, even though I did decide to change my major and I wasn't journalism anymore. I still wanted to keep working with podcasting, and that's what brought me here.
Yeah, no, it's a really fun medium because it's so new, and just the limitless possibilities of what you can do with the platform is what really enticed me, and I'm sure that's what drew you. But from that response, I noticed journalism and psychology, and what was that marriage in your mind when you first came in?
So my dad came to college as a psychology major and then went to law school.
Okay.
So my original plan was law school. And so I was thinking psychology right off the bat just because that is super fascinating to me. And then journalism with that because I thought, hey, it's writing. It can't hurt for law school.
Yeah, exactly.
Quickly, the law school thing didn't work out. And so that's why I ultimately changed journalism. But I loved psychology too much to let it go.
Yeah.
I guess my thought with psychology in particular is I don't necessarily know if I've ever thought about like a future in psychology, like if I'd want to be a therapist or anything like that. But one thing that has developed is I know I want to work with kids.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it doesn't hurt to have a little psychology knowledge about developing kids and kind of how to go about that and what's going on in their brains at certain ages. And I think psychology can be helpful in any profession. And so I'm super excited that it's manageable at Miami to have psychology and something else and still graduate on time and get all the credits that you need. So I love it.
Yeah. I mean, you've only been here 2 years, but I mean, there's a whole story there. So talk to me about what was it about Miami that, you know, made it the place for you to come, and were there any other options that you explored before finally settling on Oxford?
Yes, I had multiple other options that I was considering basically up until the very end when I made the final decision. I want to say I applied to 11 colleges. And so that obviously set me off on a foot where like it was going to be a difficult decision.
Yeah.
And so once acceptances came back and everything like that, I was a senior. It was 2020 and March COVID hit. And so my plan was I'm going to go back to all these places. I'm going to look at them all again and then make my decision. And that just didn't end up happening. I loved Miami. I've always loved Miami. I came here as a freshman in high school for the first time.
Yeah.
And my brothers had hockey games here.
Okay.
And so I came and I went into the Goggin Ice Arena and I was like, this is the coolest campus ever. Like, it's beautiful. And then it kind of just stuck around and it ended up becoming a decision between Miami and Elon down in North Carolina.
Yep.
And I think I knew some people that were going to go to Elon. And so there was a little bit of a part of me that kind of wanted to come to a college where nobody was going to know who I was. You know, nobody from high school was coming with me here. I was going to be completely alone, like brand new slate. And that's kind of something that I was looking for. So,
And that's not an easy decision at all, really. Did you find any conflict with that decision, or were you pretty set on, I kind of want to do this on my own?
It was a really tough decision because I feel like one thing that doesn't get talked about a lot with seniors picking where they want to go to college is the underlying influence that your parents have.
Yeah.
I mean, my parents supported me 1,000,000% no matter what I was going to do. But obviously there's a part of you that's like, well, I know that my mom really loves this campus and I know that my dad really loves this school. Like there's things like that are kind of underlined that made the decision maybe a little more difficult.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I was pretty set on Miami, and then I just kind of needed to say it, I think I was thinking it for a while, but I just needed to say it.
Yeah. So how far are you actually from Miami?
I'm not far. I'm 4 hours.
Okay.
A 4-hour drive. That's what a lot of people, when I say West Virginia, they're like, oh, man, like you're from the South. You're so far.
Yeah.
I'm a bordering state. I'm pretty close.
So only 4 hours away, that's a day trip to get back home. But like I've said many times before, being on campus is different, you know? It doesn't matter if you're 20 miles away or 200 miles, 2,000 miles away, right? It's different. So what was that first year for you? And it was in a weird time, too, when we were coming off COVID. So what was that first year for you, kind of like?
Well, the first year was super strange because, like you said, it was a really unconventional year altogether. I didn't have any in-person classes my freshman year of college.
Yeah.
So that was definitely strange. But getting invested in organizations and getting meeting people through those things really helped because it kind of forced me to get out of the dorm room because it's so easy. It was so easy at that point. Like you wake up, turn on your computer, like have class, and then you're still in your room all day. So it kind of forced me to get out, and I am so lucky. I had such an amazing roommate my freshman year. We're still very close now. We went through Rush together for sororities, and we obviously did it on Zoom. And so we were like rushing together in the same room, which was super strange.
AirPods in and things
the
like
AirPods
that.
in, trying to ignore each other.
Yep.
But I absolutely loved my freshman year. I met some phenomenal people who I'm still very close with. Obviously, the organizations that I'm still involved in. Yeah, I wouldn't change it. Definitely made the most of like the situation that was presented to me and like my friend group, and it was awesome.
That is awesome because I will say from my personal experience, because I had a year and a half of not on Zoom, and so junior year kind of messed with me a little bit because I had to completely shift the way that I was thinking about things and the way that I was consuming this knowledge. But the advantage that you guys had coming in is that you didn't know anything else.
That's exactly what I was going to say. You already had kind of this routine. You had, like, you knew what you were supposed to have.
Yep.
Whereas we came in, I had no idea what to expect. Like, there was nothing to disappoint.
I mean, you had to know that wasn't what college was. So was there a little bit of disappointment when you first started?
Absolutely. But I think, honestly, hot take, most people might not think this, I did not hate virtual classes.
Okay.
I kind of liked being a little bit independent, doing it on my own.
Yeah.
And I did fine with it. I know of some people that really did not. So, you know, like I said, I don't speak for everybody when I say that. But I was disappointed, of course, because I wasn't allowed to be in a study room with more than 3 people, and I wasn't allowed to have big study sessions with my friends at Armstrong. And wearing a mask everywhere. You might recognize somebody, but you're not sure because you can just see their eyes. You're like, maybe I don't know that person.
Yeah.
So just weird things to get used to that obviously was disappointing, but you make the most of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So how did you start off navigating it? I mean, like we mentioned, that was all you knew. What in that weird way, how did you make friends, get involved? What steps did you take to kind of work through that your freshman year?
So I don't know, you might not remember this, but when they let us all come back, they did let us come back, and I was so grateful because I thought maybe my whole first semester.
Yeah, you weren't here first semester.
Yeah, I was here, but I was nervous that they weren't going to let us.
Okay.
But we had to come a month late.
Mm-hmm.
So we were supposed to come in August. Yep. We came in September. Yep. And I auditioned for an a cappella group on campus while I was still home.
Yeah.
And so that was really helpful.
So hold on, before you go, how did that work?
My dad was an a cappella singer in college. He was all about it. Growing up, I would always watch like his tapes from his group. He went to Washington and Lee in Lexington.
Okay.
And so I kind of immediately knew. I was a big musical theater kid in high school, and I didn't want to study that, but I knew I wanted to incorporate music somehow.
Yeah.
And so as soon as I decided on Miami, I went to the hub and started checking all of the organizations that were available in that department that I could look into. And I saw the a cappella groups.
Yeah.
And I went up to my dad. I was like, there's so many, like there's like 3 a cappella groups that I can audition for as a girl. Like I really want to do this. And so I kind of, followed the Instagrams, did all that. And it was kind of immediately on my radar. Once I picked Miami, I kind of just sought it out. And then we had virtual auditions at home, and it ended up working out. And I had, upperclassmen that already knew who I was when I got to campus, which was super nice. Yeah.
You said that there's multiple. What are the differences between these a cappella groups? Because I honestly thought there was only one. I thought it was just the Misfits, which is the one that you're involved with.
So there's 2 all-female groups. The Misfits is mine, and then there's another one called the Troublemakers.
Okay.
Just all-female. And then there's a co-ed group called Just Duet. And then there's 2 boys groups, Open Fifth and Soul to Soul.
All right.
And so we do collaborations and socials and things all the time with the other groups, which is super fun. We all have the same goal, obviously. Like we all make very catchy, like pop music. There's not, when it comes to that, there's not a huge contrast, but it's mainly just whether you're co-ed, all boy or all girl is the main difference between the groups.
Got you. Is there any like friendly competition between the groups, or is it all love all the time?
I mean, of course there's friendly competition. There has to be.
Yeah.
It keeps us excited. It keeps us like the adrenaline pumping. Our shows are not competitions though. We never have shows that are us competing against each other. So those are always fun because we all get to kind of hear what we've been working on and all come together and listen. It's always friendly and playful and so much fun to be around all of them. There's groups of friends that, have become friends for life that are from, 2 are from this a cappella group and 3 are from that one and 1's from over here. And just the friendships that are made in between groups is super special.
Yeah. I'm messing around. Like, obviously, there's not crazy competition going on. But
No,
it's fun. It's fun to talk about. So now tell me about this whole major switch that went down with you. Was it like an identity crisis thing or what prompted it? Where are you now?
So obviously before I was journalism and psychology. Kind of just did it because I thought maybe I'd like it, which is the joy of college. You can change it.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea to do at all.
And so that was really exciting that I was able to do that. But basically how it happened was over the summer, before sophomore year, I shadowed at all kinds of different places. I worked at a dentistry, my stepmom's dentistry. That's where I primarily worked, but I was shadowing at all these different courtrooms with like plaintiffs and defense and like all kinds of stuff. Judges, I would shadow judges, like all kinds of stuff. And basically I just decided law school is not for me. And I was already a little bit discouraged with journalism at this point because a lot of the people that I was in class with, their end goal was to write for a crazy magazine or a newspaper. And that was never my goal. I think if I would have stuck with journalism, it would have been much more like broadcast, like podcasting and, broadcast journalism type things. So it was a little bit discouraging because I wasn't necessarily on the same track as the people that I was taking classes with, which is totally fine. But I'm glad that I knew that and noticed that.
Yeah. That takes self-awareness too,
Yeah, I was just like, you know what? We don't really have the same goals here, and that's totally fine. And I mean, they're obviously geniuses and phenomenal writers, and I was so lucky to be in class with all of them, but it just wasn't for me. And so at the end of the summer, I finally made the decision, like, I am going to switch this semester, but you register the semester before. So I already had another semester of journalism that I had to finish, which was very lucky because I had the podcast class. And so if I had been able to change it, I would never have gotten into this.
Exactly.
So everything happens for a reason.
Most definitely.
But I decided on speech pathology. I really wish I could tell you why. I'm not totally sure why or how I've finally decided on it. I've always been interested in studying the voice, the disorders of the voice, what makes it work, all that kind of stuff. And I found out that there was a major for that. And so I kind of jumped on it and then obviously kept psychology. And I have absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that I changed it to what I did.
Yeah.
Because now I'm at the point where I am kind of running out of time. So I'm really glad that I made the right decision the first try.
Yeah. And the thing that I always tell everybody, whether you've been through college or you're just coming in, or adults, like when I'm talking to them and they're asking me, it's you can come to school and do whatever you want. If you want to be an architecture major, you can be an architecture major. If you want to be an art major, you can be an art major. But you can't be any of those things and just sit in your dorm.
Yep.
And just go to class and then come home. If you're really going to do it, you got to put in the work and you got to put in the time, and that's the thing that I think a lot of people got to understand is you can't just come. Some paths are easier than other paths.
Yeah. And I think that that's something that I've learned in college that I think you have to learn very quickly, which is I think that leading up to college, a lot of things in our lives are kind of just placed in front of us.
Yeah, most
and
definitely.
We're like, okay, like I'll take that, or like, no, I'm good. Whereas when you get to college, it's up to you.
Yep.
It's completely up to you. If you want to sit around and do nothing, that's totally fine. But if you want to get involved, you have to do it yourself.
Yep. That was something that I wouldn't say I struggled with, but I didn't fully grasp when I was a freshman, because there were things that I saw that were cool, and I was like, oh, I should do that. Like, I should try that out. But I had this like weird thing in my mind that was like, oh, maybe they'll ask me to do it. And then I quickly realized, okay, no one's gonna come and be like, oh, you look like you could do this, so now come over here and do this, right? But it's really up to you. Like, no one's gonna come checking for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's your first glimpse of adulthood.
Yeah.
You're officially making your own decisions, And it comes down to things as simple as class.
Yep.
If you don't want to go to class, that is your decision to make. Like, every single thing in your life is up to you. And it's it's daunting, but it's also really exciting. Yeah. But you just have to know what to do with it.
Exactly. So are there any specific classes that you want to note, or specific professors that you want to shout out or anything like that?
Yeah, I love my anatomy class. And I heard going into it, I was very intimidated by this class because I heard going into it that it's a weed out class, that you'll take the class and then basically from there decide, do I want to keep being a speech path major or not? Yeah. And so this was super daunting because I was like, I don't really have time to make a decision like that. Like, I need to like it. So hopefully this goes well. And Susan Bream, my professor, is phenomenal. She, thinks so. I mean, her students come first, 100%. Yeah. We play with Play-Doh. We chew gum in class to it's all for a reason, obviously, but she addresses it with so much creativity and kind of uses that more creative side of our brains because we are in science classes all day. So kind of brings out that creative side in all of us. And she I love her class. I love her. And I guess I'll give a shout out to my physics professor as well, because he's so smart. He's so smart. And the things that he says and just the knowledge that he has just off the top of his head is insane. His name's Christopher Beer. Okay. And he is a genius. So shout out to both of them.
Cool. So more on the podcast tip now. What do you hope to get from this whole experience?
Well, first of all, I just want to say how excited I am about it. I have been looking forward to an opportunity like this since I became interested in podcasting, which I would even say was before I took the class. I've always loved listening to podcasts. I think they're so much fun. So what I hope to get out of this, I guess, is obviously there's a skill set with interviewing that needs to be built to have a position like this. And I'm really excited for that because I think interviewing and active listening and being comfortable with things like that is always going to be important. It's always going to be helpful no matter what you do, because you're going to have interviews. You're going to have, even parenting, the active listening, like these are all skills that can be taken really no matter what direction you go in. And so I'm really excited about that. I'm excited to hear stories. I can't wait to hear about the students at Miami and really get to know like these phenomenal people at our university that have figured it out and are kind of doing their own path, going their own way, and are totally succeeding at it. I look forward to finding people like that, bringing them onto the podcast. And I'm really excited to be here. I feel like I've joined at a really exciting time with the transition into the new studio. And I think that it's going to be really exciting to kind of see what happens while I'm here in this position.
And we've talked about this many times before, but, make it your own. It's not, you're not me and I'm not you. So at the end of the day, it's yours now.
You've done a phenomenal job.
I appreciate that.
Phenomenal job.
I appreciate that. I guess the last thing I have for you is, do you have any questions for me? I mean, I'm gonna flip it on you. I know Peter hit me with this when I did my interview like you, so I'm gonna do it to you too.
Let's recap your experience. How would you sum it up? What has this podcast been for you? When did you start again?
My first episode came out in the fall.
Gotcha.
Right. I think through this whole process, I've just been able to really identify and find common ground with people. Like people who are, I'm on one side of campus and they're on the complete other side, and we would have never crossed paths if not for this. And you still are able to find that common ground. Exactly. And that's the best thing that I think I've taken away from this whole thing, is just being able to, like you said, hear these people's stories. And because we're all out here just trying to figure it out and trying to do the thing, right? So hearing how other people are managing it is super cool. So it's been a crazy experience, because you don't think that you can do it, and then you start to do it and you start to see a little bit of success, and it's like, man, like I'm doing it.
You're doing something,
Like I'm doing it, and that's just been the dopest thing about this whole process. And I think it just goes back to, don't be afraid to try something that you're interested in. It could be podcasting, it could be acting club, it can be, modeling for the magazine or something. It's like, just do it. That's the biggest thing that I think I can say from not just this podcasting experience, but from my whole college experience, is that, you never know what's going to happen until you shoot the shot, really. That's the way you gotta do it.
Cool thing is, this is for Miami, but I'm sure for every university all over the place, there is something for everybody.
Most definitely.
Something for everybody. But like we said earlier, you just have to look for it.
Exactly.
It's there. There are some crazy organizations on this campus that I'll just randomly run into. And I'm like, I didn't even know that this was a thing. Like, this is so cool, But there's something here for everybody.
Definitely.
But I definitely think you found something special with Major Insight.
No, this has been so much fun, Meredith. I think the podcast is in very, very good hands. You got this new official studio that you're in now, and I think you're going to do great. And I'm cheering for you, and I'll be listening.
Thank you.
Most definitely. Meredith Aliff is a speech pathology and psychology double major here at Miami University. And today, we're also excited to welcome her as the podcast's new host. And thank you for listening to this episode of the podcast. If you enjoyed it, share with your friends or anyone interested in navigating college life. Many more episodes are now available wherever you get your podcasts.